Welcome, everyone. My name is Lana Zamaro, and I'm here representing the League of Women Voters of Concord Carlisle, along with other League members who are helping to produce this forum. Can you, League members who helped out, please give a little show of hands? Could not have happened without them. The League is a nonpartisan organization. We focus on supporting the tenets of our representative form of democracy in the U.S. Representative democracy means the government is in our hands. The League's tagline is, democracy is not a spectator sport, i.e., that means show up. We need to show up, and you are. Certainly, running for office is a high demonstration of showing up, but so is your presence here today to meet the candidates running to represent us in governing Carlisle. Elections are on Tuesday, June 3rd. Voting is a key part of our privilege and responsibility as citizens, and an informed voting electorate is essential to a sound democracy. The timing of this forum was a challenge because we have an extremely busy town calendar. Carlisle town elections are, as I mentioned, in just a few short days, and our intention in holding this forum now is to provide voters with information about candidate views on relevant issues impacting our town. The League of Women Voters has established guidelines and protocols for candidate forums that are applied in all League candidate forums. In addition to candidates running in contested races, we also welcome those running in uncontested races. That's our first group here, so that you can at least hear their thoughts about their priorities and what they hope to bring to the seat that they're running for. And now, on to our program. I'm very pleased to introduce our moderator, Sue Flykop. Sue is a trained moderator and a very, very active member of the Wayland League of Women Voters. Sue, welcome to Carlisle. Take it away.
Well, thank you, Lana. Hopefully you can hear me at the back. Thank you, Lana. Thank you, everyone, for being here on a busy Saturday afternoon. This is a great turnout. So. I am here to basically ask the questions and to keep the event moving. So we'll get started with explaining to you how today's program will work. We're going to start with candidates in uncontested races, and then we'll have a panel for the contested race for a 3-year term for the planning board, the race that qualifies for questions from a moderator and the public in attendance in this forum. I'll go over the format for each section as we get to it. The audience, just so you know in advance, the audience could submit questions by writing them on a postcard or posting them in the chat for those of you online on Zoom. Please note that questions cannot be directed at only one candidate. We ask all the candidates the same questions. So if you submit one, just keep that in mind. Time will be monitored by our League members here in the front. You'll see 2 reminders, one for 30 seconds. Is there a 15-second one? Okay, one for 30 seconds and then a stop. And I've let the candidates for the planning board know that they don't have to stop mid-sentence. They can finish their thought and then stop. So 30-second rebuttals, this is for the contested race. 30-second rebuttals will be allowed at my discretion, but our purpose here today is to hear the positions of the candidates. We encourage you all to read the statements from each candidate in the May 30th issue of the Carlisle Mosquito to learn more about each candidate running in this election. And thank you to the Mosquito for providing this resource to the community. So we're going to start with those running in uncontested races. They have 2 minutes each to introduce themselves and outline their priorities for the office they're seeking. If a candidate for an uncontested race could not be physically present today, they were invited to submit a written statement that I will read, but no questions will be asked of candidates in this category. We want to keep our time for the contested races. So we're going to start with the school committee, and this is a 3-year term. There are 2 people running for 2 seats, and we're going to start with James Steele. So 2 minutes to you. You're Mr. Steele. Yes.
I am. Are you ready? All right. Hi, I am James Steele. I've been a Carlisle resident for about 12 years. I have a third grader and a fourth grader at Carlisle Public Schools. I moved here before we had kids and was welcomed into the Carlisle school community in a way that I had hoped and didn't really know what to expect. From that point on, so my oldest started in the fall of 2020 in the early on COVID, and the way that we handled things and the welcoming atmosphere of the school, even when we weren't allowed in, really was just something that living in a town where it's hard to meet people otherwise drew me in. And so the time that my kids have been in this school, I have just seen them flourish, their friends grow. Our commitment to community from within the school has meant so much to me. I wasn't really in a position to step up for this until I think recently, as the kids have aged a little bit, life has changed, and I would say there's more free time, but as you can see from my sunburn, I was sidelines on soccer all day. So I don't have an agenda for joining the school committee. It is just something that I believe in. I have been a lawyer for 20-something years. I am a certified court mediator. I love, not touching this. Bringing the mediation element into what I do. So my goal with the school committee is just to shepherd the great things that we're doing. I understand where we are with budgeting this year, and there's some significant transitions at the school, but I want to be part of the team that helps move that through. I think that I bring with me, as a business lawyer, I'm not just a lawyer, but I wear a business partnership hat all day. So those are the sort of things that I bring with me to help this community that I care a great deal about move a little bit forward for the next 3 years.
Thank you, Mr. Steele. Sharon Witt, the other candidate, could not be here today, so she submitted a statement which I'm going to read now. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum and for your continued commitment to civic engagement in Carlisle. Although I'm unable to be physically present this evening, I want to express my gratitude to the community for your support and your shared commitment to Carlisle's public schools. During my time on the committee, I've helped lead initiatives that strengthen both academic excellence and community belonging. I co-founded the Carlisle Belonging Collective, bringing together CPAC, DEI, CAC, sorry, I don't know how to say that, the PTO, and other community voices to create a unified platform that celebrates diversity and student identity. Through projects like the Yellow Tulip Project, we've worked to break stigma, build connection, and create safe spaces for all students. In partnering with CPAC, I have supported families of students having direct avenues for collaboration and advocacy. From a policy standpoint, I've helped review district policies through an equity lens, asking the right questions to ensure fairness, representation, and access are at the forefront of our decisions. We've made meaningful progress, including a successful teacher contract negotiation that honored the value of our educators. As we look ahead, I remain committed to ensuring every student in our small district feels seen, heard, and challenged. Carlisle schools are a reflection of our community values. I'll continue to lead with thoughtfulness, collaboration, and a deep commitment to educational excellence for all. Thank you for your trust and support. So there we have the two candidates for school committee. They were timing me. James Steele and Sharon Witt, both candidates for 3-year terms, and there are 2 open seats. So thank you. Next, we're going to go to the select board, where there are 3-year terms, and we have Christine Stevens, who is going to read her statement for 2 minutes.
Oh, great. Yeah, I'm not reading, actually. I'm just kind of ad hocing it here today. So I've been in Carlisle for 9 years, and of that time, I was a library trustee for 7 years. And really proud of what we accomplished as part of the library trustees. We raised over $2 million for the renovation. Still have a little way to go. So if you've not donated to the library recently, I would really like to recommend you do. But we also, everyone stepped up in town during COVID. Our librarians came up with a really innovative way of drop-off and pick-up so people can continue borrowing privileges. And then just in general, I'd say that the 2 biggest issues in front of the town right now are the land use issues and then also the deferred maintenance issues. And I feel like I have firsthand experience with the deferred maintenance. The library has not been renovated in some time. It's been over 25 years. And, there's just so much to do around town. So as Lana was saying in her opening statement, now is not the time to sit on the sidelines. So I felt like while I am a busy working mom, I can definitely spare a few moments in the evening to make sure that our town carries on our traditions and that these really important tasks get taken care of. I have been following the police and fire renovations as well. Just as an anecdotally, I grew up in a decommissioned firehouse that was too small to serve its town's needs, which was a really great place to grow up. My dad in particular loved it. It had a 6-car garage and 2 stalls and a urinal in the bathroom. He thought that was fantastic. But that's not the kind of place that we want our fire department working out of, right? I don't want to be the one who watches my house, burning down around me and say, oh, but look how much money we saved. That's not the way to run things, right? These are not places that we want to shortcut on. All of us need our emergency services at some point or another, and they need to be well-funded and well-supported by the town. The other things that I would say is, I really enjoy the town's resources. I think I am the most recent Trekker Award.
Thank you. And the other candidate, Travis Snell, could not be here but also submitted a statement, which I'm going to read now. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for organizing today's candidate forum. My son is graduating from Concord Carlisle High School today, and regrettably, I'm not able to attend today's forum due to family commitments. Hopefully you can all hear me. I'm grateful for the opportunity to serve Carlisle. Over the past 3 years on the select board, I've worked with many talented volunteers and town employees to help preserve our wonderful community and thoughtfully plan and navigate the way in which Carlisle meets the challenges of its future. As a town, we have incredible natural resources, residents who are active and involved in our community, and a first-rate school that continues to attract young families. As a member of the Select Board, I will work to preserve and enhance these key attributes within Carlisle. I have been a resident of Carlisle for 24 years and will continue to work to maintain and enhance a transparent and welcoming government to serve our residents. I ask you for your support and vote on Tuesday to serve another 3-year term on the Select Board. Thank you. So that was Travis Snell, and we have Christine Stevens. They're both running for two open seats on the Select Board, which are 3-year terms. So thank you for that. Moving on now to the Board of Assessors. There is 1 open seat for a 3-year term, and we have Raymond Modine here. And so now, if you'd like to give your 2-minute statement.
Yes. My wife and I, Mary Helen, have been in town for 52 years now. We kind of know some of the older town folks, such as the farmers who were here when we first moved in. And is this mic on, by the way? Okay. So we got to know some of the older style of living in this town that really was coming out of the growth of people living on farms into more of a suburbia. We saw the growth of the town over the years, both in terms of the increase in conservation land, which we voted for. Anybody remember when the toll field was voted on and things like that? When it comes to assessment, my objective is to be fair and equitable to all property owners. That's the maximum that I want to achieve. And as you probably all know, there was a hullabaloo 3 or 4 years ago about assessments because of the variation in assessment levels. However, I will remind everyone of this, that a lot of it is data-driven. It's driven by process regulated by the Department of Revenue. So we follow that process. I've been on the board as an appointee for 3 months now. I participated in the abatement process. And so I've kind of said to the rest of the board members, I'm still a rookie. I'm learning quickly, though, and I want to continue this job because I think this is the right fit for me to serve the town again. Before I jump off the stage, I want to say this. Many, many years ago, here's how I was introduced to the Board of Assessors for the first time. About probably 45 years ago, there was this car parked at the end of our driveway, and I walked out actually had a pickup truck, and he rolls down his window and says, "Hi, I'm Larry Sorley." He says, "I'm an assessor, and I'm going to assess your house." And I says, "Well, golly, well, come on in, Larry." And he says, "Oh, by the way," he says, I know you have a farm out on 225. You have chickens, right?" He says, "Yes, indeed." So he assesses the house. He leaves. And on the way out, he says, "Oh, by the way, Larry," I says, "is any of that chicken manure for sale?" He goes, "No, it's not for sale, but you can come by and take all you want for free."
Thank you. That is Raymond Modine, who's running for the 3-year term for the Board of Assessors. So thank you, the candidates. We have 1 candidate who also could not be here today for a library trustee. That's a 3-year term. Caitlin Watterson, and I have a statement here that she submitted, which I'll now read. My name is Caitlin Watterson, and I am running for re-election as a library trustee. I am sorry to miss the candidate forum today. A previous family commitment precludes me from attending, unfortunately. To tell you a bit about myself, my family and I have lived in Carlisle since 2016. I've been a library trustee for the past 3 years and learned a tremendous amount. I'm an avid reader and library lover, and when there was an opening for library trustee in 2022, I jumped at it. I think it is important to be involved in and give back to our community, and this has been a fun and engaging way for me to do so. I am running unopposed for this position. Carlisle is fortunate to have the Gleason Library with its constantly changing collections and talented staff. The nature of libraries is constantly evolving, particularly since patrons increasingly want digital materials. The Gleason keeps improving thanks to the people who work, volunteer, and patronize the library with requests and ideas. We will continue offering new and different events, updating our collection, and providing diverse offerings to stay current and relevant to patrons of all ages. In my next term, the library renovation will occur. During the renovation, we intend to continue providing services since the library is a heavily used town resource. Last month, for example, we circulated over 7,500 physical items, plus additional digital items, and our door counter came in at over 7,000. We're working with the project manager and architect to finalize renovation details. We look forward to sharing details and plans for services as soon as the building committee and library trustees make decisions. I anticipate the renovation to be a major focus in my next term and appreciate the town's support for it. The library does face challenges, though, and funding is one of them. Federal funding is in flux. Luckily, only a small part of our budget comes from federal funds. However, if enough libraries that rely on federal funds lose them, there could be a knock-on effect for us in state or Merrimack Valley Library Consortium funding. Okay, I will stop. Sorry, Caitlin. Okay, so that was a 3-year term, Caitlin Watterson for library trustee. We have one more open seat, and that's for the Board of Health, a 3-year term. There is one contestant for actually 2 open seats. Tony Mariano is running. Mr. Mariano was invited but was unable to attend the forum, and he did not submit a statement. So you don't get to listen to me read again. So thank you to all the candidates who have put themselves out there, and congratulations for winning. So we're going to move to contested races now. If the candidates for planning board could come up and take their seats.
Doesn't matter where.
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
Okay. I've been in a couple of meetings. Okay. Nice to meet you. Yeah, you too.
I am Joe. Moment, yes. Thank you.
Stacy Lennon. Stacy Lennon. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Court Herschelman. Thank you.
Amelia Fournier. Yep, that's right. Thank you.
Justin, yes.
Yeah, he's on Zoom, so.
You have to hang it from the TV.
He's honorarily Spirit of Eric.
I mean, he's,
right?
he's
Yeah, no, I know.
we should just paste it to the TV.
Coffee,
Yeah.
caffeine.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, as we're getting started, I just wanted to say a word about the select board race, because that also is a contested seat, 2 candidates for 1 seat. In contested races, the league requires at least 2 candidates to participate in person. The league cannot hold an empty chair forum, that's the term for it, when only one candidate in a contested race is actually physically here in person. And so we can't allow questions or statements from candidates in this situation. This applies to the select board. I will announce there are 2 people running for 1 seat, Barney Arnold and David Thomas. I believe Barney Arnold is here, but David Thomas could not make it. So again, I refer you to the statements in the Carlisle Mosquito. But we do have the planning board here. And as you can see, we have 5 candidates in person, and we have Eric Adams on the screen. He's joining us virtually on Zoom. We have Eric Adams as a candidate, Amelia Fournier, Joe Gushu, Justin Harrison, Court Herschelman, and Stacy Lennon. Just a little bit about the rules for our forum today. We are very happy to have all 6 people here. They will each provide a 1-minute opening statement. Our questions will mostly be 90-second responses, although there's several questions that will be 1 minute, and I'll discuss why as we get into it. Our closing statements are also 1 minute, and as you saw here earlier, there are timers here to keep us on track. And we are just going to dive right in with opening statements, and we're starting in alphabetical order, and then our closing statements will be in reverse alphabetical order. The questions in between, it'll be all over the place. I'll mix it up for everyone. So for right now, we're going to start with Eric Adams. 1 minute to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay? All right. Well, thank you all for coming. My name is Eric Adams. I've been a resident of Carlisle for just over 16 years, raised 3 kids here, starting at the Red Balloon and going through Carlisle Public School, 2 of whom one graduated from CCHS, one is a sophomore, just finishing her sophomore year. I have participated in town government for the better part of a decade, starting with the Historic Commission, the Zoning Board, and the Planning Board. I remain the chair of the zoning board currently. I feel like this is a very important time in our town's history. I think we have some very complex challenges ahead of us with competing priorities of trying to maintain the small town, rural agrarian ethos that we all, I think, celebrate and enjoy, with a growing and looming financial pressures as
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Adams, your time is up. It was only 1 minute. Can you see the timer? Can you see us at all?
I can't. No,
Okay.
we haven't figured that out.
Okay, we're trying to fix that, but I apologize. Amelia Fournier, 1 minute to you.
Hi, my name's Amelia Fournier. I'm running for planning board. I've been in Carlisle for 5 years with my family. I first got involved here when our neighborhood was being considered for the MFCC zoning. We met as neighbors and we had some concerns, so we then went to the planning board and the subcommittee meetings. I've been attending those regularly since the fall. And I noticed that in those meetings that we're going down one particular avenue at that point, and I was interested in encouraging them to explore other options. So we've been advocating for that with other residents. Also, we've been asking for them to consider hiring a consultant to address issues and have a specialist outside of state representation who would overlook over Carlisle's best interests and inform us in terms of a civil engineer or a land use attorney. So I'm advocating for Carlisle residents and the minimum.
Do you want to finish your sentence?
Yes, that would be great. And advocating for Carlisle residents in that the law has a minimum impact on the town.
Okay, thank you. And Joe Gushu, it's 1 minute to you.
Hi, thanks for being here. My name is Joe Gashu. I've been a resident for Carlisle for over 22 years. I have 3 children that have gone through the Carlisle CCH school system. I am a professional engineer by trade, licensed in Massachusetts. My background is primarily transportation. I've spent 30 years in rail transportation. with the MBTA Communities Act, it's, as Eric alluded to, and I agree wholeheartedly, that it's a very complex issue that needs thorough looking at to see what the impacts are going to be on Carlisle for the long term, because we need to take the long-term view of this, because even though this law is in place now, the next governor may repeal this, who knows? If we do things now that we can't pull back, that would be problematic. So we need to take a really closer look at that to make sure we're doing it correctly for Carlisle.
Thank you. And Justin Harrison, 1 minute to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Justin Harrison. I live on North Road with my wife and 8-year-old son. So why am I here? It's very simple. I want to represent and advocate for everybody in this room, everybody on Zoom, everybody all around town. I don't want to convince you to accept something that's not in your interest. I want to represent those interests. I'm going to measure my success if I'm fortunate enough to be elected on 3 axes. 1, did I do everything I could to protect health and safety of residents? 2, did I make every effort to minimize impact on the town, its finances, its people, impact in every form? And 3, was I fair? Pause on that last one, fairness. Housing and development are essential conversations to have, but whatever we do, it can't be on the backs of select families. That's a terrible precedent, and those are not our values. It's really difficult to express the pain that this process with looking at MBTA zoning has caused my family, and I don't want that for my family or anybody else. It's bad for them, and it's bad governance. Thank you.
Thank you. And Court Herschelman, 1 minute to you.
Yes, my name is Court Herschelman. I've been in Carlisle about 6 years. This will be I'm running for my second term on the planning board. I moved to Carlisle because I fell in love with the nature, the conservation land, basically everything that Carlisle is. And going forward with all of these challenges that we have with the MBTA communities, and don't forget, we also have to implement the protected use ADUs as well in a responsible manner. Both of these combined are going to have potentially could have a big impact on our community. So I want to, my goals for the planning board would be to make sure that we implement these things in a responsible and careful manner to minimize impact to the community as we go forward. And not forget that the planning board works for the town of Carlisle. We work for the townspeople of Carlisle, and we can't forget that as we go forward, so we need to listen to everybody.
Thank you. And Stacy Lennon, 1 minute to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stacy Lennon. I've lived in Carlisle for 9 years. We have 2 kids at CPS. My sister lives in town as well. She got us to move here. I'm a professional facilitator and a former city planner. So I've spent my career helping stakeholders navigate complex, high-stakes decisions together like this. Know any of those we need to have? When it comes to the MBTA Act, Carlisle's not a monolith. The best data we have about what people want in town comes from our master plan process, where 25% of people said they didn't see housing diversity as important, but 52% did. So those are meaningful differences, but they're not divides to exploit at one another's expense. I'm running because I have experience listening to and working across differences like this. Developers won't care what we hoped or what we feared. They'll act on what we zone. For that reason, we need a process that empowers voters on every side to weigh in based on accurate, truthful, realistic, relevant information. And that's the kind of leadership I can bring.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to start our questions. Just a reminder, if anyone wants to submit a question for our candidates, please either wave it up or bring it to the table over here. Someone's coming around to collect them. So we'll go question by question. This first question will be 90 seconds. Okay? Yeah, so these questions, just as a reminder, these will be reviewed to make sure they're appropriate for all candidates. They can't really be targeted to just 1 or 2 people. So we're going to start with the prepared questions, though, that I have here in front of me. And we're going to start with Amelia first. So the question is, please describe what you view as the goal and purpose of the planning board and what you believe your qualifications are for the position and what your contribution will be. And these are 90-second answers. So you have 1.5 minutes.
Okay. So I believe the role of the planning board, first and foremost, is to protect the health, safety, and well-being of the Carlisle residents. And that's done through regulation, and that's done through zoning. Can you repeat the second part of the question?
what you believe your qualifications are for the position and what your contribution will be.
Okay, perfect. So I'm a nurse practitioner. I don't have any background officially in planning, but in this case, I feel that this is a good thing. I feel that being able to come to the planning board as representing the common resident and speaking from not a particular industry, like as a builder or a developer or someone who's already involved in planning, that is something that currently we feel that we need more of from the planning board. So that's what I'm bringing.
Thank you. And Stacy, a minute and a half to you.
Sure. So certainly planning board has a responsibility to tend to health, safety, welfare, well-being of its residents. I also think a planning board needs to be able to handle and work through complexity together. Right? We see in our master plan that we have a number of priorities. Some of them wind up competing a little bit with each other. And we have to create conversation that can help us work through some of those rougher edges together and have the background, knowledge, experience, and ability to shepherd a conversation in the right direction to help make appropriate decisions that serve all of Carlisle. I'll stop there.
Thank you. And Court, the question to you next, a minute and a half.
Yes. So I think that we need to continue to be open-minded when thinking about MBTA communities. I think that we need to continue to be open-minded, not go down a single path. We need to continue to explore multiple paths. I think there's a lot of ideas out there that other towns have already investigated or even zoned for that Carlisle hasn't really looked at yet. So I'd like to see that as we continue to go forward, that we're keeping our minds open. We're listening to opinions that come from outside the planning board as well as within, so that we can come up with the best solution for Carlisle.
Thank you. And Joe, a minute and a half to you.
Planning board primarily is here to serve the public of Carlisle. That's what we're here for, bottom line. So with that, serving the public of Carlisle, we are shepherds for all that's under our purview, in particular zoning, which is going to be affected by the Massachusetts Community Act significantly. So depending on how we present that and look at it through all of the lenses that need to be looked at it with the appropriate stakeholders, it's going to be extremely important that we're covering all the bases and answering all the correct questions. It will be significantly impactful in zoning, although up front, from a map perspective, it's very simple. It's zoned for this, but the implications of that filter down significantly through every department within the town government and the community. And so we need to take a careful look at that to see what all those implications are: health, financial, school, services that the town offers. All that will be impacted by this, and we need to do it correctly so that we're doing the right thing.
Thank you. And Eric, 1 minute, 1.5 minutes to you.
Thank you. Yeah. I think a lot of people have said it. I think there's a lot of commonality here. We're all here in service of our fellow residents and in service of our town, which I know we all celebrate and hold sacred. So obviously everything from public health, safety, smart development, finance, infrastructure, services, those are all critical aspects that we talk about on the planning board on every single meeting, and we all show up despite our differences of opinion, or actually we celebrate those differences, as Court said, and I think it's made us a better planning board, certainly in my time on the board so far. I do feel like I'm qualified to participate in this, given my understanding with zoning from my business standpoint. I am not a developer. I just want to clarify that. I build homes for people who pay me to do that. I think having a perspective that is grounded in experience and understanding the nuances of municipal codes is an important aspect to being able to think logically and practically about how we can face our challenges productively and without excessive cycles. And certainly I've experienced a lot of town government aspects and different challenges through my 10 years serving the town already, and I look forward to doing that.
I'm sorry, Mr. Adams, your time is up. Okay, and Justin Harrison, 1.5 minutes to you.
Thank you. Number one, it's public health. That's our legal duty as a board, and that is the first thing. It's a threshold issue for anything the board does. We have to look at that first and always. And then some of the other important tasks are what I outlined, in my opening. I want to make sure that we are looking at sustainable development going forward, that it minimizes the impact on the town on every aspect of that. As I said, whether that's town finances, bringing in a lot of people at once or not, whether it's the environment, what are we allowing to be developed and how. And what are the impact on people of these developments? And then, of course, fairness. We're looking at how we allocate zoning, building, everything. It needs to be done in a fair way. As far as my qualifications, I'm an outsider as well. I'm a lawyer. What I do every day is negotiate. I advocate for my client. I interpret laws. I have a background in both compliance and anti-corruption, and that's what I do every day. And I would apply those same skills to this job.
Thank you. All right, our next topic is the MBTA Communities Act, and we've divided it into 4 different questions. So I'm going to ask you to try and stay focused on answering the questions. We will, I'm not a fan of rebuttals, but we will have rebuttals. If you feel you need to, just sort of give me a little wave. We'll run through all 6 candidates, and if there is a rebuttal, we'll do those same 6 candidates in the same order. They'll have an additional 30 seconds. All right, so our first question, we're going to start with Court. And just for the audience, again, a 4-part question about the implementation of the MBTA Communities Act. The MBTA Community Act has generated a lot of thought, effort, and opinion in town. This is 4-part. You will each have 1 minute for each of these 4 questions. And again, if we need a rebuttal, there'll be additional 30 seconds. So our first part is the MBTA Communities Act is a law requiring Carlisle to adopt zoning that allows for the development of multifamily structures containing a total of 95 homes, which is 5% of the existing number of homes in town. What do you believe is the best way for Carlisle to comply with this legal requirement?
So what I'd like to see us do as a planning board, we are investigating several different scenarios. There's 4 main scenarios that we're investigating. I'd like to see us look at what other towns do, especially investigate areas that have already been disturbed and look at rezoning those areas. If we can rezone an area that's already been disturbed, that's better for the environment. Potentially the same impact that you're going to have on the water resources if the zoning is comparable in density. I think we really need to start to do that going forward. There are some properties in town that I think would be ideal things to look at to do that. And the planning board should start to do that going forward.
Thank you. And Justin, the question to you next, 1 minute.
Sure. I mean, a level of everybody. I don't think anybody has the perfect solution yet. And so I think we need to keep looking and we need to investigate fully a range of options in order to find that. That said, I think we also need to look carefully at how we can limit the amount of land to be rezoned. And that is not to say in any way that I want to build a 95-unit structure somewhere. I've been misrepresented on that a number of times. That is not the case. We need to look at what we can do to ensure that anything we do zone for is safe for the public and minimizes impact.
Thank you. And Joe, a minute to you.
So with rezoning for these 95 units, my primary concern with this is the effect on our water supply and subsequent water treatment, because we are an environmentally sensitive town. And that's a fundamental issue that we're going to have to resolve. And given the geological conditions of how this town was formed, it's not a one-size-fits-all here, because it's disparate throughout the town in terms of ledge, environmentally sensitive areas, wetlands, conserved land, et cetera. So those areas are going to be very, very limited. And the second part is, I think we should be controlling growth versus a one-unit location because of the immediate impact on all of us in terms of, again, finances, town services, et cetera, that we may not be able to absorb by complying with this law.
Thank you. And Amelia, 1 minute to you.
Okay. So I don't believe zoning over existing neighborhoods is the way to go. I'm trying to consider other options other than that. In terms of, I would like to look further at the minimum land use just to see how we can possibly limit the amount of structures that do get built. This has to be vetted, and I'm not advocating for a huge apartment building either. I'm thinking more of a combination of possibly zoning over existing high density, but other options in conjunction with using some kind of minimum acreage, but not over existing neighborhoods.
Thank you. And Stacy, a minute to you.
Sure. So we have 4 distinct approaches under consideration already, and we have 5 months to get proposals onto the fall warrant. So I didn't say this in my earlier answer, but I have helped communities, actually my hometown where I grew up, work through very similar issues. We had 2 years to start from general questions of, I'm worried about this, what about that? But I'll tell you what, it wasn't until we got to what I might call prototyping each of the proposed possibilities on the table that we actually advanced the public conversation. I'm all for continuing to learn from what other communities have done, but let's not pretend that the planning board hasn't been working hard and doesn't have 4 ideas that need further vetting. We cannot go back and start over at this point. But what I think we can do, and just time is of the essence, folks, and that's not to be alarmist, it's to be real, is that we need a better public conversation so people understand what each of these actually would look like. That's how we advance the conversation.
Thank you. And Eric, 1 minute to you.
Thank you. So I've obviously been thinking about this a lot as we've spent a lot of very late night planning board meetings over the last year plus. And for me, I've listened to a lot of our town's residents and a lot of concerns from various people asking me questions about the 95 unit tower that is being proposed, and I say it's not being proposed that way. My thought is a distributed overlay that will minimize health impact to the natural resources, water and soil, and not burden any one particular neighborhood more than others. So keeping in the tradition of our residential aesthetic and not relying on one location, relying on a broad base of small development.
Time is up.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone who feels a need to respond to other comments? I think we can move on. Good. Okay. Justin, you're going to go first with this next question. What are your thoughts about the possibility of Carlisle losing state funding if our community does not meet the requirements of the law?
I don't think anybody up here suggests.
Oh, yes. Apologies. 1 minute each.
I don't think anybody up here is suggesting that we not comply with the law. I think we're trying to find the best way to comply with the law so that we don't lose any funding. I will say that I think the way that the governor has gone about this is really aggressive, and that's something we need to be aware of. And it's also something that I don't agree with in terms of withholding things like fire safety money, holding that over our heads. I think that's really not appropriate. But we're not advocating noncompliance. I'm certainly not doing that. I want to find the best way we can comply so that those threats are not there. And I want to find the best solution for the town.
Thank you. And Eric, 1 minute to you.
Yeah, I think I agree with Justin. I think we need that state funding. I think, as I was alluding to previously, we have a looming financial challenges in the town. And so I think we have to find ways to both comply with the Commonwealth mandate and do it in a way that's consistent as possible with the values of the town, the aesthetic that we all enjoy. And again, I think that I would like to see a broad-based approach that has the most minimal impact to any one property, any one neighborhood, any one street. So I'm trying to find ways to comply with the law, not just so that we don't lose funding, but so that we can actually increase the diversity of housing in our town.
Thank you. And Stacy, 1 minute to you.
Sure. This might be maybe one of the rare times when I think we have common ground. I don't think anyone is advocating that we not comply. What I will add is the state has shown that it's willing to go beyond withholding state funding, right? We saw with Milton. So the state sued Milton, right? Because Milton, I think Milton first sued the state, then the state sued Milton, whatever. But what came out, and Milton lost, but one of the things that came out in that lawsuit was the state indicated that for communities that didn't comply, they might be willing to do such things as send a special master to come decide your zoning for you. Right? So as much as we may think that's overreach or we disagree or that's too aggressive, it's just the reality that we're living in. So I think there are lots of reasons why I think it's a good thing that none of us up here is advocating that we test that with the state.
Thank you. And Court, 1 minute to you.
So the planning board established a mission statement about the beginning of this year to kind of say how we're going to approach this problem. One of the things is that we said, okay, we're going to make a good faith effort to comply with the state mandate, and I think that that's fair. And so we've been working towards that. One thing I don't think we need to do is panic. I know that the deadline is looming, but we don't want to make a bad decision for Carlisle because we're in a panic mode. If we need to, we can go back, we can probably renegotiate, or at least we need to keep that as an option going forward. Because just about the worst thing we can do is make a bad decision for Carlisle, because it's a pretty good bet that if something is zoned a certain way, somebody's eventually going to build there. So we just have to be thoughtful going forward in the potential impacts of our actions.
Thank you. And Amelia, 1 minute to you.
Yes, I'd just like to echo what Court is saying, that although we do have the December deadline, if we don't have it right by then, we need to continue to work at it, and we don't need to rush to approve something that is not right for Carlisle. So although we can negotiate further timeframes, or if we need to be out of compliance for a short period of time to get it right and get it figured out, that's what we'll need to do as a town. So I just don't want people thinking that, oh, we need to rush and decide right at December, or else there's no other option. But there is other options, and I don't think that the state is going to come at us in January and decide to zone a certain part of town right on January. I think we do have time to get this figured out and work with the state.
Thank you. And Joe, 1 minute to you.
So, with anything, not complying with it is always an option. Is it the right option? No. It'll come with consequences, obviously, as Stacy alluded to. And at the end of the day, they could come in and force a special master to say this is what your zoning is going to be, absolutely. Conversely, if we don't do that and we have to make up for the services and it comes out of your taxes, your tax dollars may increase X amount per year. Are you willing to do that? Secondly, I'm not advocating for that, but in a good faith effort to do this, I think we need to do it in a controlled fashion that we can effectively do it correctly. And with that, just because the deadline is coming up at the end of this year, November or whatever it may be, it's not cast in stone. We can always go back and address and amend the bylaws to do something else slightly, as long as we're in compliance. I'm not saying it's going to be a continual effort, but to other points here, it's not the end of this conversation. It will go on till we get it right.
Thank you. Okay, our next question, we're going to start with Stacy.
Are rebuttals?
Did you want a rebuttal now? Because it seemed like you were all in agreement with each other. So.
Well, I think I'd just like to clarify, because apparently
you know
I
what?
sounded...
Can you hold that? Let's get to some of the... I have two more questions on this topic, okay? And then maybe at the end.
Sure.
You can all say what you came to say but didn't get a chance to. All right, but you're going to start with our next question. Do you believe Carlisle can create new zoning regulations for gradual development?
1 minute.
1 minute, yes.
New zoning regulations for gradual development
Yes.
in the context of MBTA.
Yes.
Yes. In fact, one of the four distinct approaches, actually one of the distinguishing features of each of the four approaches that the planning board is considering is the pace at which development would occur, or that we could expect it to occur. And one of the big variables that will affect how quickly anything occurs has to do with, well, how many separate property owners are implicated in each approach. In the most distributed scattered version, right, with small scale multifamily units around town, you'd have to zone 30-something separate parcels. That's 30-something separate property owners who will make 30-something separate decisions about selling, developing, or not. Those are 30 different transactions that will happen at some pace. That's at one end. So that can be gradual over time. And that's different from the pace that other approaches would enable.
Okay, thank you. And Joe, the question to you next, a minute.
So with that, again, with a slower development, if the overlay is on existing single home properties, and it will take time for those properties to change hands, and there's no guarantee that the next incoming property owner is going to want to develop that. So even though we zone it and we've met that number requirement, doesn't mean it's actually going to happen right off the bat. It will take time. I mean, think of how long it takes time for homes to cycle through this town, right, in terms of buying and selling. That will take time. So even if there's an overlay, it will take time to change hands. And then two, if the hands do change, if they agree to actually implement multiple homes on that property.
Thank you. Amelia, the question to you next. 1 minute.
Sure. So if we're looking at some of the larger property, like if we choose 3 areas to zone over, those could be made up of many different parcels. So that would also have some kind of effect where it wouldn't be the exchange of property all at once, where there could be one area that gets bought slowly or one area that develops less quickly. Also, I'd just like to say to the MFCC plan that I think in our eyes seems gradual, but when we look to other towns, it's not as gradual as we think. Like, properties are exchanging much more quickly than we anticipated. So I'd just like to put that out there, that although that would be more gradual, I don't think we're talking about the same timeline that we thought originally. That's it.
Thank you. Eric, 1 minute to you.
Yeah, I have to wholeheartedly agree with Joe. I think that, again, a broadly distributed, small impact zoning change for multifamily housing is not only going to be reliant on the greatest number of homeowners and therefore transactions, it's also going to be most constrained by the natural resources and the Board of Health regulations to be able to put a suitably engineered and sized septic system and water usage plan together for those opportunities. So I actually think it accomplishes a lot of the things that I'm pretty sure we all agree on, which is limited development, slow pace, minimal impact on natural resources, and a democratized effect to all of our neighbors and community in the town. So I think that's inherently the most gradual approach.
Thank you. Justin, 1 minute to you.
Thank you. I understand that's a goal with the MFCC plan. I think it's a nice idea, but it's just not realistic. For one thing, the impact is not small on the families who are rezoned and their abutters. It is catastrophic for them potentially. Every day they're going to wake up with kind of a sword of Damocles over their head, wondering if their neighbor is going to sell. And people sell. People get new jobs. They move away. They pass away. And once that one family sells in that cluster, it's going to be a domino effect, and that's what we're seeing elsewhere.
Thank you. And Court, 1 minute to you.
Yeah, so I agree with Justin. Initially, it will take a little while for the more properties, more changing hands. That process will be slow, but the financial incentive to develop at the higher density is there, and we've seen that in other towns. So once those transactions happen, once there's a domino effect where people are like, okay, well, I'm going to get out of here because I don't want to be next to a large cluster, it's going to go very fast. Maybe not quite as fast as building a 95-unit apartment building, but it'll be still a matter of a few years. It's not going to be a matter of a decade. It'll be pretty quick after that, and the developers will move in. So, thank you.
Okay, so Joe, this next question is to you. This is the last of our 4 questions, 1 minute each. And then we can give you like 30 seconds after this. So Joe, question to you. Please describe what you consider to be the positive or negative fiscal impacts of compliant zoning for Carlisle.
I'm not sure if there's actually a positive impact, to be frank about it. If it does happen, depending on what scenario plays out, We'll go from worst to best. So if it's a 95 unit complex gets built and we pass this, and next thing you know, someone sells a parcel of land come spring and they're developing next fall, and we've got 95 additional units in town. What is that impact going to be, right? So does the school system have the room to absorb possibly 180 new students? Does the town services have enough to support all that's needed to support that correctly? And what's the impact going to be on the water supply and water treatment? Because that'll probably have to be a public supply system. And the problem with that is there's a disconnect between monitoring public and private sewer systems and wells, and there's a disconnect between that. So the abutters could be affected, and we may have a problem with that we can't come back from. So once this is in place, you can't come back from it. So I have concerns about that. I really do.
Justin, a minute to you.
Sure. I mean, we talked about some of them already with the potential withholding a grant, so that's certainly a negative or positive if we are in compliance or not. Otherwise, yeah, absolutely. I like what Joe said. I mean, if we bring in a lot of new people, that's going to have an effect on town services, schools, and everything else. And I don't know if that was a point about which one is faster or not. I don't think we're there. But yeah, I don't see a lot of positive impact here. And I don't think it's going to help people buy affordable housing either, because these are going to be expensive houses. And it's just not going to meet the goals that we think it will.
Thank you. And Court, a minute to you.
So I only see a negative impact on the town fiscal stance, and especially the impact to the schools. If we do get in 180 students or so all in one shot, I don't think we can react to that. I don't think we can easily afford it. Our taxes keep going up. Everybody knows that. And so it will be an impact to the town to absorb this, whether it's gradual or not. It's going to be an impact to the town.
Eric, 1 minute to you.
So I think that's, we're all in agreement that there's going to be impacts to the town. No one has said anything about the benefit of additional revenue generated through tax dollars for those new people. So it's not all negative. I think that, I think we are a town that welcomes a diverse population of people and should do a better job welcoming a more diverse population of people, offering more diverse housing options. And yes, there's going to be more requirements for town services as the population of the town increases, but there's also going to be a corresponding increase in revenue through tax dollars associated with that construction. So I think it's only talking about half the story when we say that it's just increases in requirements and services. There is a benefit to increased tax revenue. And quite frankly, if we don't have smart development, the only solution that we are going to have is to raise taxes in perpetuity, which will continue to make our town unaffordable for our seniors and young families that are trying to move here.
Thank you. Stacy, 1 minute to you.
Sure. So if you look at other MBTA towns that have commissioned fiscal impact studies, many of them have shown net positive impacts. Not all, but many of them have. So I would be cautious about jumping to firm conclusions about what is inevitably going to happen here. So that's one thing. I don't know if we're going to commission our own fiscal impact study, but we should at least learn from the methodologies used in others. And it's not as you can't do it in your own Excel spreadsheet. It's more complicated than that. But the other thing I would say, again, is that the timing of how it all happens really matters. Right? If we have distributed model where we've got a few of them popping up and we have 10 new students each year, our school can absorb that. We're not talking about huge impacts all at once, right? That would happen over time, and we could likely absorb a lot of that. But there are other approaches here that would have different fiscal impacts because the timing of the impacts would matter.
Thank you, Stacy. Amelia, 1 minute to you.
Just in terms of looking at it from a revenue standpoint to a cost standpoint, we know that it costs for each child to go to school $20,000 to $25,000. So if we're looking at the MFCC plan, we're displacing the older generation and putting in new families in general. I know that's not the only situation, but it's more likely that older families will move on who don't have children in the school system and newer families will come in. So if we're looking at that revenue perspective, I think the negative cost perspective outweighs the revenue that's going to be generated.
Okay. So we're at the end of our MBTA questions, unless there's some in the future from the audience. But I'd like to give you each 30 seconds to either sum up your own position, respond to something, mention something you haven't said. We'll go in the same order that we just used. So we'll start with Joe. 30 seconds if there's anything else you'd like to mention about on this topic.
The planning board has been looking at this for a long time. We spent a lot of hours, late hours, looking at this, and I'd just like to point out that Addie's done a lot of work on this, and she probably needs to be congratulated for her effort in this, in terms of this, what you see here for the options. It's a complex topic, and there are no easy one-shot solutions here. There's no panacea for this, and it's going to take a continued thoughtful effort to correct this, or not correct it, but do it correctly.
Thank you. 30 seconds is very fast. Justin, 30 seconds to you.
Sure. Just to sum up, I think we need to fully vet a range of options to decide, exactly what is going to work best for the town, weigh all the costs and benefits, understand what can be built, how many units would be there, when is it going to be, what do the owners and abutters think about each option, and we cannot let the deadline of December 31st drive a bad decision.
Thank you. Court, 30 seconds to you.
Okay. So we need to be smart. We need to be careful. We need to think about what could happen for unintended consequences. And I do want to thank everybody who's been coming to the planning board meetings recently and providing all that great input, so we're stimulating new ideas going forward. So thank you very much.
And Eric, 30 seconds.
Agreed. I think this is a critical point for us as a town, and I think that we have an opportunity to make some great decisions that will positively impact our town, both with a diversity of housing options and a diversity of residents. Our school population has declined 250 students since 2009. So we have the capacity in our school to take on additional students, and I think that shouldn't be, this should not be contextualized as a doom and gloom situation. We have an obligation to our town to look to the future.
Thank you. Stacy, 30 seconds to you.
Sure. So, in my experience, the best way to advance the public conversation is to sort of prototype each of these approaches, right? That when we actually get everybody into a room and we can lay out, okay, here's what this approach does, here's how the zoning can control for and constrain, here's what it could allow, et cetera. That has a way of taming people's worst fears. It has a way of correcting misinformation, and it has a way of advancing the conversation in a way that we need to do at this point.
Thank you. And Amelia, 30 seconds to you.
And just in terms of advancing the conversation, I think it's really important that we use this money that we got at town meeting to invest in consultants, whether it be civil engineer or a land use attorney, to really have the expert tell us what makes sense for us from Carlisle's perspective and not from the state.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to another topic. We're back to 90 seconds for your answers. And Eric, we're going to start with you first. The question is, the Commonwealth is facing a housing shortage that is an issue across many towns and cities, including Carlisle. At the same time, Massachusetts has committed to ambitious climate targets and resiliency standards. Do you believe that Carlisle can support these efforts while also maintaining Carlisle's character? And that's a minute and a half to you.
I definitely do, and as a builder, I'm excited for my company, we are specializing in high-performance construction, which is now the mandate in the state of Massachusetts, which I'm proud to be a Massachusetts resident. I think that we can it's not that we have to create sustainable, high-performance homes. Again, I've said this previously to this afternoon, a diversity of sizes and types distributed most broadly across our town, which I believe will have the least impact on our natural resources and the least impact on the aesthetics of our town, which again, I think many of us came here, were drawn to this town for that reason. So I think we absolutely have an exciting opportunity to build new houses that are as green as they will ever be, and can address the growing need that we have for everyone in town, generating revenue and generating some smart development.
Thank you. Amelia, a minute and a half to you.
In terms of sustainable development, I agree with Eric that this is definitely moving forward with new homes being built. However, I just want to highlight that with the MFCC plan, where you're tearing down old homes, that we just have to think about how sustainable that is as well, that all of that is going into landfills, that there's going to be more impervious surface when you start rearranging lots, that in terms of sustainability, we've talked about using existing structures, but I don't think that's actually going to happen. I believe that builders are going to come in, knock down old homes, and then build from the ground up.
Thank you. And Court, a minute and a half to you.
So new development and sustainability are counter to each other. There's an environmental impact with developing, especially if you're going to develop on new land. You're going to cut down trees, you're going to put backhoes in the ground, you're going to put more people in a community, more people on the roads. Rainwater is going to run off much faster than it used to. It's not going to perk down. So they are counter to each other. We do need to manage it. Even with the master plan, we acknowledged that we were going to grow and develop things as we went forward. The difference there was we were going to grow and develop on Carlisle's terms. Now we have to manage things with the state looking over our shoulders. So we just have to be careful. There is definitely an impact to sustainability in the environment as we go forward, and we really have to be conscious with that and try to minimize that as much as possible.
Thank you. Justin, a minute and a half to you.
Okay, thank you. I certainly hope so is the answer, but I think it really depends on how we go about it. And I agree with Amelia completely. You know, incentivizing the tear downs of existing houses is not the way to go about it. I mean, even if you build an efficient house in their place, we're just carting off that old house to the landfill, and that's not appropriate for a number of reasons. We talk about existing structures, and you know, we need to remember those are people's homes we're talking about. This is not some old warehouse district or something in Carlisle. Those are people's homes we're talking about, and they will be torn down and carted away. And that is what I do not want.
Thank you. Joe, a minute and a half to you.
So technology is changing in terms of sustainability with new housing, and that'll evolve over time. In terms of sustainability, I don't know if it's completely feasible to rehab existing structures to make that compliant with sustainability, as well as multiple housing units with water impacts and such. So it's a truly challenging question, especially for Carlisle in general, given our constraints environmentally and zoning wise, and the zoning is there for a reason for the water constraints. So I'm not saying there's not a solution. Things change over time, and they do improve over time. Right now, it's a difficult conversation. I hope we do get there. I'm just not sure we have the answers just yet how to do that.
Thank you. And Stacy, a minute and a half to you.
Sure. So I think in general, doing housing and supporting climate resilience are not necessarily at odds. I'm not going to claim to be an expert in this particular intersection of needs. But what I will say is that I'm hearing some generalizations that MBTA approach is inevitably going to lead to tear downs. And I just want to correct that. That's not necessarily true. And that's, again, why it's important that we really drill down into the details, right? We have 4 dozen-ish properties in town that are grandfathered as 2-family properties if the existing structure is kept, right? So one approach we could consider is put our MBTA zoning on those sites and create some incentives to keep the existing structure. I'm not sure about the economic feasibility of doing that, but I want to say this is a conversation that I think we can have and work toward preserving multiple goals at the same time.
Thank you. Okay, our next question, we're going to start with Justin first. Several years ago, the Select Board started working to establish an all-of-government approach at the local level, meaning that each board and committee would be transparent, communicate with other boards and the community, and work together to achieve town goals. How will you contribute to that effort? Minute and a half.
Oh, thank you. I think that's a really good initiative and something we should absolutely continue. I've been advocating for many months now that the select board get involved in this MBTA process. I think when I was on the subcommittee and then I think as the planning board, I don't think we have a monopoly on good ideas, and I don't think we're fully embracing our role as subject matter experts for the town. So I advocated in a meeting at the planning board, jointly with the select board. I advocated in a letter to the select board, and I advocated in the Mosquito that the select board get involved in this process, and I would welcome their input, and I think it should be a joint process, as other towns are doing. West Newbury just voted down their MBTA plan, and the select board is stepping in now to start a new brainstorming process to collect ideas from the public, and that's something I think we should do too.
Thank you. Eric, 1 minute and a half to you.
So I think I'm really proud of the work that the current the current planning board has done. I've heard a lot of frustration from some people who show up to a meeting and say, gosh, I wish we'd known this sooner. But the planning board has been holding its meetings bi-monthly for a long, long time. They're all open meetings, public meetings, and I encourage everyone in town to participate, to learn, to get involved. As I didn't realize this was the League of Women Voters kind of purpose statement, but I've said to friends and other residents for a long, long time that I don't think democracy is a spectator sport, which is why I've been involved in town government for over a decade. And I welcome the lively debate. And I think that we need to continue to solicit ideas and feedback from a wide range of people. What we can't do is have, as has been happening very frequently, people come in that have not been participating in the process and kind of slowing the process down. So we could do a better job being, I think, welcoming more people into our meetings and getting a broader base of support, and I think we should continue to make efforts to do that.
Thank you. Amelia, 1 minute and a half to you.
In terms of working with the people of Carlisle, the planning board's already considering holding more open houses, which I think is a great idea. But even to go a step further, I think we should have brainstorming and working sessions with people where it's not just, as in the past open houses, where we're just telling people about ideas, but we're actually seeking ideas from the public. So I think just having that small switch would be really effective in hearing the voices of the Carlisle residents.
Thank you. And Stacy, next to you, 1 minute and a half.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Several years ago, the Select Board started working to establish an all-of-government approach at the local level, meaning that each board and committee would be transparent, communicate with other boards in the community, and work together to achieve town goals. How will you contribute to that effort?
I think continuing the dialogue with Board of Health, with school committee, with variety of committees in town to contribute to the work that the planning board is trying to advance is critical. I mean, I know that that's already been happening, and it's important to keep doing that, right? Planning board shouldn't get ahead of what other boards would say is not possible, not feasible, etc. So we need wide consultation, but I would also say we need wider, better public participation. All of us here are the people that are following this closely, and we are already interested in this. How many people are in town who are like, what's this act? What is zoning? I can't tell you how many parents I've talked to who they're too busy to even get their arms around this. So part of what I think we can do as a planning board is commit to more accessible information sharing. That's something that I've specialized in. That's something that I've done. That's something that I'm already demonstrating through the website that I've put together. Let's bring the community along in the full conversation and ensure we're consulting the boards and other entities within the town that can contribute to the conversation we need to be having at this point.
Thank you. And Court, 1 minute and a half to you.
So one of the things I think we did to really kind of bring things out and make sure that we were getting the information out there was we were working in a subcommittee, which was fine, but there was so much interest that we kind of brought it back to the planning board to make sure that everything was discussed in kind of a bigger public forum, and we need to continue to do that absolutely going forward. We do have a MBTA or a website that's part of the Carlisle website, which tries to keep the information flowing. It provides the schedule, it provides examples of the options so people can stay in tune. But it is true. I mean, people still that, we rely on this and what kind of media we like to use. And so we possibly need to look at exploring other ways to reach out or at least notify people, hey, there's an update on the website. I think that the planning board is doing a good job going forward, planning ahead, making sure that we have open houses and continuing to try to get the word out and keep people abreast of the latest on where we stand in terms of addressing MBTA communities and other topics for that matter.
Thank you. And Joe, a minute and a half to you.
So my experience with the board has been that unfortunately, there's a disconnect in terms of town government with silos, and we've had very difficult times with the process and the sequence of how things are decided in terms of plan reviews, for instance. I'll give you an example with the Board of Health. Right, we approve a plan with notes to say, subsequent to the Board of Health approval. Well, most of those things that come before us should be decided upon from a safety first perspective. So fire life safety needs to be addressed first before it gets to us to say, yes, you can go build that. That's not the case a lot of times. So things like that in terms of how town government works would be better in terms of the final outcome and the process being shepherded correctly. In terms of outreach, our town planner has done a great job with moving a lot of these issues forward and putting them out in a public forum to address them correctly. And we can't thank her enough for that. To move forward to get people to become more involved, it's more like the 80-20 rule. 20% of the people are doing the work, 80% of the people are there for the ride. So, and it's probably the same thought process with the town here. You've got 20% of the people here, 80% of the people, as others have mentioned, are just like, oh, I didn't know. Well, people have busy lives. I'm not sure what we're going to do to change that societal norm that is this town to get more people aware of what they need to be concerned about.
Okay, thank you. We're going to start the audience questions now. Okay, sure. All right, so audience questions, thank you all very much. All right, our first audience question, we'll start with Amelia. Over the last 6 months or so, the MBTA Communities Act has become controversial in town. If you are elected to the planning board, do you support bringing one plan to the town meeting for approval or more than one plan? Please explain your answer fully. These will all be a minute and a half from now on. Thanks.
I was part of the group of residents that brought the warrant article to place to ask the town to bring more alternatives to fall town meeting. So I am in favor of bringing more than one alternative to fall town meeting. And that, in terms of how that whole process works at town meeting, that's outside of my purview. But my understanding is that we would just simply vote yes or no until we came to an agreement on which one that we wanted. If we voted no for all of them, then we would be voting down the option for the MBTA Communities Act.
Thank you. And Court, the question to you.
So I am absolutely for bringing multiple alternatives. If we bring one alternative and nobody likes it and we vote it down, we're in trouble. But if we come up with multiple ideas, then there is something for the town to consider. Hopefully we can come forward with one that the planning board strongly agreed with and strongly recommended, but that doesn't always happen even today. So this way the voters will have an opportunity to consider options. I think we're getting the word out. We can make sure everybody's informed and educated on the topic, informed and educated on the pros and cons of the options, and then at town they can make their best decision going forward. So I strongly support the option idea.
Thank you. And Eric, the question to you, a minute and a half.
Yep, I agree with my citizens here. I think having probably two options that have been fully vetted by the planning board and provide an option for people to, I agree that we can't just have one option that gets potentially voted down and then have to go back to the drawing board and wait for another election. So I think 2 is the right number, balancing the various pros and cons of each approach, and an approach that I know the planning board, regardless of what those options are, will be done as thoughtfully and as considerately as possible.
Thank you. And Joe, the question to you.
Yeah, so I think one is not the answer. It needs to be multiple, at least 2, if not more, to give the town the correct view of the options that are available. And obviously there are a lot available, but even with that, what we need to do is to educate the town as best possible with the pros and cons and basically the implications of each of these options and how that's going to affect you and the town as a whole. That's vitally important, and we probably could have done a better job with that, but again, with getting people's attention on this to get them aware of what needs to be done and what's involved with that, because you can follow this down to a rabbit hole if you really want to. But we need to make it digestible so that people can get the salient points up high so they can absorb it correctly and make the informed decision they need to make sure that we retain the culture and the vibrancy of Carlisle for what it is and where it should be going.
Thank you. Justin, the question to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I was also part of a group that supported the warrant article at town meeting, and I'm in favor of bringing multiple options to give people a real choice. I spoke at town meeting, and I said that I did not want to get to November and be faced with a potentially bad option or non-compliance. I don't think that is an appropriate choice to present the public. I think we need to present multiple options, fully vet them, and make sure the electorate is informed and can choose what they want.
Thank you. And Stacy, question to you.
Sure. So I just want to spark the public imagination here a little bit. When I worked on a very similar project back in my hometown, we started with 3 distinct options, and through a consensus building process, right, of really listening well to all the stakeholders involved, we were actually able to get to one single plan. But it reflected the will of everyone along the way, and that one single plan passed with overwhelming support. I'm not advocating for that here in Carlisle, but I do want to let you know that that is possible if you have a good public process. I'm fine with multiple options being presented at the fall meeting as long as they are both options that do as much good for as many people as possible. I would be really concerned if we end up putting forward a proposal that's really a dog of a plan, but just because some people really wanted to see that proposal. I don't think that's a responsible way forward. But I assume that we can do better than that as a planning board and really vet our way to 2 very good options that give people some choice.
Thank you. Our next question, Joe, you'll be up first. How can we handle issues with the impact on a butter's water supply?
Well, obviously, depending on the solution for the implementation of the zoning with the Massachusetts Community Act, that'll has a direct bearing on that, the impact for abutters. So obviously, as a lot have been said here, with slower, more controlled growth, that'll have less of an impact. As I said before, there's a disconnect between public and private water supplies where there's no links between that to monitor the effects on each other. And that's concerning. So I would say, when we've talked about this in the planning board and actually with the Board of Health, but I think there should be a town-wide well monitoring program to see what those impacts are in terms of water supply, whether or not it's compromised, whether or not it's low from a drought condition. I know people think that's invasive, but the water supply we have here, although it's private, it truly is public because it spans across the town. So what you do and what I do and what my neighbor does affects each other. And what we put into the ground, et cetera, and all those things, that has an effect. We need to be aware of that. And how are we going to be aware of that? With multiple data points. And that may take a long period of time to do that, but we don't have enough information to look at that, to see what those impacts are. And I think that's one way that we could probably try to start doing that, so that even if we don't have the answers now, the next generation or the generation after that does have the answers because they have better information on it.
Thank you. And Amelia, the question to you next.
I would just caution that the MFCC plan doesn't necessarily mean that we're doing the least impact on our water. When we look at neighborhoods, like a newer neighborhood, say like Tall Pines, that neighborhood has extreme problems with water, and that's under new construction and new drilling for wells. So I'd just like us to think about that if we're spreading this all over town in different neighborhoods, then we're opening up so many more abutters to have possible water issues. And I don't think it takes a 95 unit building. I think just the 9 units that happen with the MFCC plan could certainly impact a lot of people in terms of their water supply.
I'm sorry. We've just been asked. Can you explain what MFCC stands for?
I'm sorry, Multifamily Conservation Cluster. So that's the plan where they've chosen neighborhood overlays to equal about 64 acres across all different neighborhoods.
Thank you. And Justin, the question to you next.
Sure, thank you. As I rode the Mosquito this week, I mean, water is an absolute threshold issue for me. I do not think we can put forward a plan that does not satisfactorily reassure people in the zone or in our butters of the zone that their water is not going to be negatively impacted. We just can't do it. It's not responsible. It's reckless, and it's just not the right way to treat people. As Amelia said, the more zones we have, the harder it is going to be to do that. And in fact, the Board of Health has said that there may not be a way to do it, particularly when you're spreading it out all over town. So we've got to look at assuring people that their water is not going to be affected, and probably limiting the number of zones, not necessarily one, but limiting the number of zones is going to make that easier. As Amelia said, there are neighborhoods that have water problems now. The town had no idea that was going on. To me, that's unbelievable that we learned that through this process. The town had no idea that wells were drying up, and people are using water collection cisterns in their basements to have enough water. The town does not have information on this, and we need to figure out how to get it.
Thank you. Stacy, the question to you next.
Sure. So, not being a water expert, I want to be careful not to get out beyond what I can comfortably say on this topic. One of the strategies that seems promising to me is actually doing the zoning over existing properties that already have septic and well, because that is a way to minimize net additional incremental new septic fields and wells in town, right? So do you see how if you reuse systems that are already in place, you are potentially not adding as much strain to the system as if you do your zoning on empty lots that have nothing on them now, but now you have to add septic and well to treat or to service 30 properties that weren't 30 units that weren't there before. So, but again, I think it really goes to each of these approaches is going to have really different implications for water, for abutters. It's a conversation we should have, but I think we're going to make the most progress on the conversation if we ground it in the specifics. And I do want to say the MFCC approach, that is the approach the planning board was using last fall. They are not looking at that option anymore.
Okay, thank
you,
Stacy. Stacy, your time is up. Thank you.
Here.
Eric, a minute and a half to you.
Yeah, so first of all, I would say there is no plan that we can create that will assure the residents of our town that there won't be any issues. We just simply don't have that information. I have been, in conjunction with some of our planning board colleagues for the last several years, been trying to, in conversations with the Board of Health, as Joe alluded to, generate some data. Data is the only thing that can help us make smart development decisions. And without it, we are just, we're doing this blindly. So I definitely would support a concerted effort that the town should invest in to collect data information on existing and new wells, both their depth, their location. We have very unique unique hydrology and geology, and it changes from one parcel to the next. So I would also be in favor of implementing some type of lot by lot in a development context for new construction or new development to have some baseline information gathered as part of the feasibility for an application for construction, and taking the form of where is the water, what is the geology of this location. I don't have an answer exactly for how that would be done and financially feasible, but I do think that we could put the developers in make it their problem to generate this information and generate the data so that we can make smart and safe decisions for new construction in the town.
Thank you.
Or redevelopment.
Thank you. And Court, a minute and a half to you.
So I kind of agree with everybody else. There's no way to guarantee water safety. The geology of Carlisle is complex and varied. Lots right next door to each other. One lot will have plenty of water. The next one will be 750 feet down in fracking, and they still can't get enough. So that's happening right now. On top of that, if you start to put a concentrated cluster of homes and a lot of septic fields together, and those aren't maintained properly, or there's another problem, and you get nitrogen into your water system, you're totally out of luck as an abutter and or as a resident there. I don't know, other than work with the Board of Health to make sure that we have done the absolute best we can do to make sure they have the best septic, the best information locally on the water information. I don't know if we need a town-wide water survey and go through all that, but if we can garner information on the areas that we're interested in zoning, I do think that that would be wise.
Thank you. Okay, our next question will
I mean,
be.
could
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, you did. I just wanted to ask for a rebuttal if I could.
No, I think we're going to move on. I have a whole bunch of questions from the audience, and so let's move on to the next topic, and that would be Court first. How do you rank the importance of environmental sustainability in overall priorities and goals?
So I consider again, one of the reasons why I moved to Carlisle was for the environment, for the rural character, for the nature, for the wildlife. So managing that aspect and preserving that aspect or the character of Carlisle, as well as the single-family nature, for me is very important. Anything we can do to make sure that we minimize disturbed areas, minimize tree cutting, minimize paved surfaces, we want to do that. The more we disturb, the more we pave. That's going to change the water runoff. It's going to change the water perks down back into our water table. I feel that that's a very, very important aspect of how we make choices going forward with MBTA or further development.
Thank you. And Joe, the question to you next.
So obviously it's important. Question is how do you protect that? And zoning is obviously one part of that equation, as well as the work for the Conservation Commission, Board of Health, and all those things that basically have ties to your water supply and your septic system, as well as the wetlands and other sensitive areas that we have in town. So there are many things in place from a state level and in the town level with conservation, as well as a lot of the open spaces. But with new development and changes in existing development, we need to be very aware of how that's going to impact our ecological system and how that'll move forward in time with that impact. So we need to be very careful with how we treat that for the people that are coming behind us.
Thank you. And Eric, question to you, a minute and a half.
Yeah, obviously it's at the top of the list. I'm not sure that I wrestle with this concept frequently. Is that a higher priority than limiting someone's ability to stay living in a house that they've lived in for 50 years because they can no longer afford the taxes? That's obviously a critically high priority as well. And so this is actually an excellent question that goes right to the heart of this election and, quite frankly, town government in general, which is we all have to make judgment calls. We all have to address significantly complex challenges and topics that are not a matter of simply saying, this is the top priority, and this is the next, and this is the next, and this is the next. We have lots of competing priorities that are all important for various reasons and various people and various interests. So I appreciate the question, but I actually think it's not. I think the better question is, how do we balance all of these priorities, which are important and critically important to everyone in town?
Thank you. And Stacy, a minute and a half to you.
Not sure I have a lot to add to this question. It's critically important. I think I agree with Eric's comments about we've got a number of priorities that I think people in this room would say are important. And when it comes to MBTA, probably what we're going to see as the most promising proposals come forward, some are going to do better on the environmental sustainability question than others, right? And so some individuals are going to say that is the one we have to do, but there may be trade-offs that show up differently in the other proposal that's going to appeal to others. I'm getting pretty good at saying I'm not an expert in this thing. What I'm an expert on is public process and enabling conversations where people can talk through what their priorities are, and we can work really hard to address them as well as possible. So I don't want to get too far into exactly what the environmental sustainability priorities might be. My recognition is that they are absolutely important. It's a key part of why many of us are in Carlisle, and the conversation needs to be robust enough to acknowledge and work to address those environmental sustainability concerns that people have, while recognizing that's happening inside of additional priorities that we're working to meet.
Thank you. Let's see, Justin, question to you next, a minute and a half.
Obviously, very, very important issue. I'll go back to something I've said a number of times. To me, our number one priority and our legal duty is public health. That's where it all starts for me. Everything else comes after that. With that said, environmental sustainability is inextricable from a number of those other goals, including public health. What effect are we having on the water, on the land, and how does that impact the health of people in town? It's also tied to what kind of development we want in terms of, are we going to tear down houses? Or what are we going to put a big thing in one location? It's inextricable, and it's not something I can rank, but it is part of each of the other priorities.
Thank you. And Amelia, the question to you.
From the environmental and sustainable aspect, I would say that minimizing the development that is going to happen will be good for the environment and sustainable. So I think working towards minimizing what gets developed is a really good solution for prioritizing environment and sustainability. Also, from another avenue, I think as a planning board, we could work on regulations that help further protect our environment. So in terms of the MBTA Communities Act, because that's by right, everything must be looked at from what's the most lenient standard. So if we start looking at those standards, there's things that we can do as the planning board to help further protect our land. So I think that's another big component to helping protect what we have.
Okay, thank you. Our next question will be Eric first, and it's a big sort of meta question. Do you want more housing in Carlisle? And looking at low income, moderate income, and higher income. So if you can explain your answer.
Yeah, so as I've said this afternoon, I do want more housing in Carlisle. I think we suffer from largely kind of a monoculture, if you will, of housing types, which are mostly large single-family homes, and they're unaffordable for most citizens of the Commonwealth. I think that our town would benefit from a greater diversity of housing type and a greater diversity of citizens. That's this patchwork, this diversity of perspectives and histories and cultures that make such a rich and robust community that we live in and enjoy. And I think doing things that will continue to help provide opportunities for a greater sense of diversity in our town will inevitably help our town continue to address the challenges of today and be able to face the challenges of tomorrow. So I do support smart, thoughtful, considered development.
Thank you. Amelia, the question to you.
We're definitely going to see more housing in Carlisle. We've already passed the ADU law at town meeting, and just in terms of development, that development is going to continue regardless of what we do with the MBTA Communities Act. So I think we are going to see more housing developed. I think we need to just be cautious and be sensitive to the fact that we don't know exactly what's going to happen. So taking a slow, steady course versus planning to do more zoning that enables more housing than we're bargaining for, I don't think is the right approach. I think we need to be as cautious as possible on this because we don't know what's going to happen in these next few years.
Can you just spell out what ADU means for people who might not know?
Accessory dwelling unit.
And these are like additions to your home, you know,
That got passed
a
at-
garage into a in-law apartment or something like that.
Or a separate structure.
Yeah, or subs-
Okay, great, thank you. All right, Joe, a minute and a half to you.
Yes, I mean, so obviously from a sociological perspective, multiple tiers of housing, you know, with low income, middle income, and higher income housing brings the inherent diversity that we all are looking for to a certain respect. The difficulty with that is going to be, although we want it and we're looking to achieve it, given the constraints from a septic system standpoint, there's a 2-acre minimum here, and there's a reason for that, and that's based in science. So to get around that, you know, with anyone that buys a 2-acre plot of land, given the price of what is here now, to develop something, how many bedrooms are going to fit on that 2-acre plot of land to satisfy Title V requirements is going to be difficult, and that's an inherent challenge with trying to implement these varied stages of tiers of housing. It's a difficult conversation that's part of the MBTA Communities Act and the ADU bylaws that are in place now. And it'll be challenging to roll that out over time to get the right housing population that we want to have here, so the people that work in this town can actually live in the town, and whatever else needs to be there. But it's a difficult conversation, but ultimately some of that's based in science that we can only do so much with. That'll change over time as science improves, and we're able to address that, and it'll bring that housing to here. But it's a difficult process.
Thank you. And Justin, a minute and a half to you.
Thank you. I agree with Amelia's point that, you know, more development is coming, that there's no way around that. It's going to happen. We need to make sure it's sustainable and well thought out, you know, and safe. As I've said many times, I think that is our number one duty. As far as diversity of housing choice, that's an important conversation to have and something that we probably do need more of. But I think it's a little bit of a misconception that many of these MBTA plans are going to achieve that, because I don't think they will. We're going to end up with clusters of 1.2 million condos in areas, and that's not going to help anybody. So I think it really needs to be done thoughtfully, and it needs to be done sustainably, but I'm not advocating we stop all development. We just need to be careful about it.
Thank you. And Court, a minute and a half to you.
So as I mentioned, I first came to Carlisle and moved here because I loved the character of the town. And I joined the planning board kind of naively, but really enjoyed working with the people, acknowledging that, hey, people own land, they want to build a house, that's great. They have the right to do that, but I've really enjoyed working with the people who want to build a house or build an accessory apartment. You were able to build an accessory apartment in Carlisle before the ADU bylaw came along. And so we got to work closely with the people who were doing that to make sure that they could site it properly, make sure that the architecture was generally complementary to the main house. And I think, you know, in terms of housing stock and diversity, we're going to get that with the protected use ADUs, but we do need to continue to go forward with the planning board, working with the people who are building the new structures, and ultimately with the MBTA communities, whatever that turns out to look like. we're going to have to work with those developers as well to make sure that we can do the best fit we can to make sure that we maintain the right feel for Carlisle going forward.
Thank you. And Stacy, the question to you.
Yes, I support more housing diversity in Carlisle, in part because it has been a long documented and studied question for many, many years. And it is in our master plan as one of the goals. That widespread community participation in that master plan process showed that over 50% of at least respondents, and I'm not going to claim that's perfect information, but it's the best information we have about what people in Carlisle care about. 52% said that more housing diversity was important or very important, and 65% said that they were open to small, scattered, small clusters of thoughtfully done multifamily housing units. I think it's an act of care to provide more housing density, more housing options for our workforce, right? Our teachers are good enough to work for us, but not able to live here, and I'd love for us to be able to do something about that, among other folks who would benefit from more housing diversity.
Thank you. We are, we're actually out of time. You can include it in your closing statement if you want, whatever it was you wanted to say. I wanted to apologize to all the people who submitted questions we didn't get to yet, but we have time for closing statements. And then Lana's going to come up and say a few words afterwards. So we're going to go in the reverse order that we just went in, reverse alphabetical order. And Stacy, that'd be a minute to you.
Well, thank you, everyone. It's been a good conversation. I bet all of us up here feel like we could go on for like 3 more hours because we have a lot of ideas and things that I'm sure love to share with all of you. In my view, Carlisle is ready to and needs to move past the headline conversations that we've been having. In my experience, the way that we make progress in getting to solutions that really work is at this point to drill down into the details. There is still some misinformation circulating in the community, or just wrong impressions, or ideas that are a little bit outdated, that when you get down to the details, you can have the conversation that we need to have at this point. And all of the concerns that we've been talking about here, from water to environmental sustainability to impacts on abutters, we can play out those conversations at the level of, well, here's what this approach would do. You know, is that fear that you still had as scary? And so I really think we're at a point where we need to advance the level of dialogue here so that everybody can get their arms around what would really happen.
Thank you, Stacy.
For our different views. Thank you.
Okay, Court, a minute to you.
Okay. In the last 3 years, I've really enjoyed being on the planning board and serving the town, and I really do appreciate everybody coming out. The amount of attendance at planning board meetings over the last 6 months or so has been just fantastic, I think, because we're finally getting a lot of participation. We're getting a lot of feedback. Nobody on the planning board is an expert, and that's okay. But with the inputs and the ideas that we get from everybody participating in the meetings, I think we're that much stronger. So I want to encourage everybody to keep participating, keep providing the feedback, keep attending the meetings, even though sometimes they go to 11:30 at night. We really do appreciate the impact, and I just want to say, I think I haven't forgotten who I work for. So thank you.
Thank you. And Justin, a minute to you.
I'd like to thank the League for putting this together. It was really, I think, a good conversation, thoughtful discussion from everyone. To conclude, I am concerned that we're heading down a path that will not improve housing affordability, will encourage teardowns of smaller, older homes, will place our water at risk, and will hurt families. We need a better process to address our housing challenges. Opposing a plan is not the same thing as opposing improvements in housing. Assuming that is the same thing as how bad decisions get made. I hear it's popular to say you don't have an agenda. Well, I do have one, and I said at the beginning, it's very simple. It's to represent and advocate for everyone in this town. I'm a husband, a father, a lawyer, and a proud resident of Carlisle, and I will have your back in this process. Thank you.
Thank you. And Joe, a minute to you.
So I've been on the planning board for this first term, 3 years, and it's been quite the experience. I've never been in public office before. I've worked on both the public and private side for my entire career, so I'm well versed on each other's agendas and how they differ. With that, I think my experience as an engineer, it lends itself to being on the planning board in terms of being aware of the physical aspects of what needs to be done and the scientific aspects of the implications of what we do. I've always taken the long view of what we do here. We need to make decisions for not just our generation, but the next generation down the line, because what we do here has long-lasting impacts, and we need to take that view to do this job properly, because we are here for you as well as our own interest in being in the town. So we're here for you, and that's our sole job, to do what we believe and what you believe is right and carry that forward.
Thank you. Amelia, 1 minute to you.
I do want to thank everyone for coming out. I'd just like to echo that I am here for the residents of Carlisle, the current residents of Carlisle, and what is best for them. So I think it's important to think about who's coming into our town later on, but I think we need to focus on everyone who's living here right now and make sure we do right by all of them first and primary. I'd also just like to say that this process needs further looking into with experts in the field. We can't just decide what makes sense to us and what seems like a good idea. We need to really fully vet this with the consultants who specialize in this industry and can really inform our decision making. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And Eric, 1 minute to you.
Thank you all. Thank you to the league. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today, albeit remotely. As I've said this afternoon, I think we have some really complex challenges, some of which are at odds with each other. Trying to balance environmental impact with sustainable development and growth. Trying to put ourselves in a better financial position for future generations while not excluding people that have lived here from decades to be able to stay here. So I look forward to ongoing challenges and hope that I have the opportunity to continue to represent the people of Carlisle, and thank you all.
Thank you. And just a reminder to voters, you will choose 3 of these 6 candidates: Eric Adams, Amelia Fournier, Joe Gushu, Justin Harrison, Court Herschelman, and Stacy Lennon. Thank you all for sitting here for an hour with me chatting. And now just, if everyone can stay seated for a minute, Lana's got a few more words.
What's another minute? So I think if stamina is a needed criteria for being on any planning board or committee, you all have that. And I'd also like to say any of you have that as well. So you should feel free to run for office at some point. Here's my closing statement. I just want to thank all of the candidates who were able to participate today, and to all the candidates running for a seat on a town board, the foundation of town government. Special thanks to our moderator, Sue Flykop. Thank you. Your stamina is pretty good too. For facilitating this forum, and to league members from Concord, the Concord contingent of our league, for all of your assistance. Honestly, said it before, couldn't have happened without you. Thank you also to Arkady, who is our technology super whiz, who's helped us present this to the audience as well as remotely. Finally, a very special thank you to all of you here today and watching for being involved and participating in this process. I recently read a quote that said, "We must remember, it's not that democracy doesn't work, it's that democracy requires work." And this is what democracy looks like. I want to thank you all again for being here.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Good luck to you.